In this video, we're going to focus on rounding. So let's go over some examples. Round to the nearest 10. So let's say we have the number 72. How can we round it to the tens digit? So this represents the ones place, and this is the tens place. So if we're rounding to the nearest 10, the 2 is going to change to a 0. Now you look at this number. If it's 5 or more, then you need to round up. If it's 4 or less, you round down. Since 2 is less than 5, we're going to round down to 70, as opposed to going up to 80. So let's try another example. So round 59 to the nearest 10. So we have two options. Either we round it up to 60 or we round it down to 50. What's going to happen? Well, looking at 9, 9 is greater than 5. So we're going to round it up to 60. Let's try another example. 126 and 349. Go ahead and round it to the nearest 10. So here is the tens place. We either keep it 2 or we round it up to 3. This is going to turn to a 0. So either it's going to be 130 or 120. Which one is it? Well, looking at 6, 6 is in the category of 5 or more. So therefore, we need to round up to 130. Now, 349, we're going to keep the 4 or change it to a 5. So it's either going to be 350 or 340 if we're going to round it to the nearest 10. So which one is it going to be? Well, looking at the 9, this is in the category of 5 or more. So therefore, we need to round it up to 350. Let's try one more example. So round this number to the nearest 10. So this is the tens place. We're either going to keep it a 5 or a 6. And this we need to make it a 0. So it's either going to be 1260 or it's going to be 1250. So we need to look at the next number. 7 is greater than 5. So this is in the category of 5 or more. So we need to round up to 1260. And so that's how you can round to the nearest 10. But what if we wanted to round to the nearest 100? What should we do? So let's start with an example. Let's say we have 369. Round it to the nearest 100. So this is the ones digit. This is the tens digit. And here is the hundreds digit. So we need to either keep it a 3 or we need to round up to a 4. And everything after that will be a 0. So these two numbers, we're going to convert them into zeros. So either we round it up to 400 or we round it down to 300 if we're going to round it to the nearest 100. So looking at the next number is a 6. So that's 5 or more, which means we're going to round up to 400. Let's try another example. So let's say we have the number 2,349. So this is the hundreds place. So it's either going to go up to a 4 followed by 2 zeros, or it's going to go down to a 3 followed by 2 zeros. So looking at the next number, this is 4 or less, so we're going to round it down to 2,300, and that's the answer. For the sake of practice, try these two examples. 4258, and let's say 13,526. So round these two numbers to the nearest 100. So this is the hundreds place. We need to either round it up to a 3 followed by 2 zeros, or round it down to a 2 followed by 2 zeros. So looking at the next number, it's 5 or more, which means we're going to round it up to 4,300. Now for the next example, the 5 is in the hundreds place. So we either round it down by keeping it a 5 followed by 2 zeros, or round it up by keeping it a 6 followed by 2 zeros. So the next number is a 2. So that's 4 or less. which means we're going to round it down to 13,500. And that's it for rounding to the nearest hundred. Now for the next example, let's talk about how to round it to the nearest tenth. So let's say if we have the number 5.367, round it to the nearest tenth. So we know this is the ones digit, and this here is the tenths digit, and this is the hundredths digit. So we're going to round it to the tenths digit. So either that's going to go up to 5.4 or down to 5.3. Every other number becomes a 0. So we don't have to say 5.300. That's the same as 5.3. So looking at the next number, which is a 6, that's in the category of 5 or more. So we need to round it up to 5.4. So let's try another example. So let's say we have the number 12.342. Round it to the nearest tenth. So here is the tenths digit. So we're either going to keep it 12.3 or make it go up to 12.4. So looking at the next number 4, it's less than 5, which means that we're going to round it down to 12.3. Now go ahead and try these two examples. So let's say 8.1476 and 132.3591. So let's identify the tenths place. So either we're going to keep it at 8.1 or round it up to 8.2. Looking at the next number, it's 4 or less, so we're going to round it down to 8.1. For the next example, 3 is in the tenths place, so we're either going to keep it down at 3, that is 132.3, or round it up to 132.4. So the next number is a 5. So since it's 5 or more, we need to round up to 132.4. Now in the next example, we're going to focus on rounding to the nearest whole number. If you get a problem like this, it's the same as rounding it to the ones digit. So let's say if we have the number 34.235. What's the answer? So here is the ones digit. It's either going to go down to 34 or it's going to go up to 35. So looking at the next number, 2, that's less than 5, so we're going to round down to 34. Now let's consider another example. So let's say if we have 146.581 and round it to the nearest whole number. So it's either going to be 146 because we need to stop at the ones digit, or we're going to go up to 147. So this number, the next number, is 5 or more, which means we need to round up to 147. Now let's focus on rounding to the nearest hundredths place. So let's say we have 5.7246. Go ahead and round it to the nearest hundredth. So this is the hundredths place. So it's either going to be 5.72 or we're going to round up to 5.73. So looking at the next number 4, that's less than 5, so we need to round down to 5.72. Now let's say if we have 14.6899. So this is the hundredths place. So it's either going to be 14.68 or 14.69. So looking at the next number, it's greater than 5. So it's definitely going to round up to 14.69. Now what if we wanted to round to the thousandth place? So let's say we have the number 3.25614. So round it to the nearest thousandth. So this is the thousandth place. We know this is the tenth. This is the hundredths. And so this has to be the thousandths. So we're either going to keep it at 3.256 or we're going to round it up to 3.257. So looking at the next number, it's less than 5, so we're going to round it down to 3.256. Let's work on one more example. So let's say we have 17.87463. So go ahead and round it to the nearest thousandth place. So here is the thousandth digit. So it's either going to be 17.874 or 17.875. So this is either going to be a 4 or a 5. So looking at the 6, that's greater than 5, so we got to round up to 17.875. So hopefully this video gave you a good understanding of how to round numbers. Thanks for watching.